welcome to another episode of Wisdom Personified, Conversations with Dudu Msomi. I'm very excited today. I'm talking to Dr Fundile Nyathi. He's actually my social media buddy and we haven't met. So this is quite exciting that we're now meeting face to face at last. How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. Finally, we're transforming the virtual friendship into real friendship.
You know,
Yeah.
it's about time. I
Yes.
thought, I've been wanting to talk to you for a while. What were your pastimes as a child? What did you focus on?
Before I can answer that,
Yeah.
I should just give you a bit of background about myself.
Yeah.
I'm a rural boy at heart. So born in the rural Eastern Cape, grew up in the Eastern Cape, in the rural areas. Both my parents were teachers, but one of them, which is my mother, decided to go the entrepreneurial route and owned a general dealer store.
A mother, yeah?
Yeah?
Highlight mother.
Mother, yes. Yes. And so I grew up in that rural village called Tabase outside of Umtata. Being that kid from the shop, but that kid also, whose father is a principal. And so, growing up in that environment, you get those influences from the educational side of things, from the business side of things, but also the authenticity of rural areas. I still find that the best, people that I spend time with who are authentic are people who come from underprivileged, areas. No.
Some of us are authentic without having been rural.
No. Obviously, I'm not saying if you're not from there,
Yeah.
but I just find that they have very little, but they're happy. And especially the Pondoland side of the Eastern Cape, there's no diplomacy in that part of the world, but they tell you things directly. If they are unhappy about something, that's where I was born, but I grew up in Umtata. And so that's really the background. So what occupied my time as I was growing up as a kid, obviously, because there was this shop at home, so my daily schedule started around 4 o'clock in the morning. Me and my dad would have to drive to town to buy bread, fresh bread, and also fresh veggies, milk, and all of that. Because that's how we differentiated ourselves from the other shops, in the
Already
area.
at that age, you learned
Yes.
about differentiation.
Yes. So
That's wonderful.
coming back from there, which would be like maybe around 5:30, 6, come back, clean the yard. That was one of my chores, to pick up all the little chappies papers that were in the yard left by people who came to
With
buy.
amazing messages. Remember what chapters had those nice messages?
That's the first time I heard about Church Street being the longest street in South Africa.
In every town there's a church street.
Church Street in Pretoria. So I always looked forward to seeing this street, and it is indeed, a long street, but they've broken it up now and given it different names. But so pick up papers, make sure that the yard is clean, and then wash my dad's car before he goes to
Okay,
school.
what part of that was fun? It seems like it was really serious stuff.
All of that was serious.
Yeah?
Then breakfast, you go to school, you come back. So when we come back from school around 2 o'clock until about 5 o'clock, that's like our time to play with other kids, And then around 6, we come back, assist in the shop, count the stock, see what needs to be bought for tomorrow. That was basically the routine.
And then you studied medicine. So you became a medical doctor and you also a family physician.
Yeah.
Then later you became an entrepreneur. So we are now at the offices of Proactive Health Solutions.
Yes.
But when you were growing up, what vision did you have for your life? Is what you're doing now anything what you thought you will be?
Next to our shop there in the rural areas was a clinic, right? Community clinic.
Yeah.
But these guys didn't have fridges to keep their vaccines and all of that. So our home doubled up as an extension of the clinic, where we kept the vaccines for the kids and, people are coming for antenatal clinics and stuff.
Gosh, I must say we don't actually think of things like that, isn't it? Yeah.
And so I interacted a lot with patients coming to, to support our shop. And so, but also I was quite sickly when I was young, you know, with tonsillitis and all of that. So I used to go and see a lot of doctors. And because of that, I think I developed an interest in this field of medicine.
Yeah.
And they used to have big cars, big houses, and I thought, this must be life.
This is it.
You know? And so I chose medicine, and that was my vision. From age 4 or 5, I already knew that that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
It's my brother Mteto who tried to confuse me when I was doing Standard 9, which is grade 11 nowadays, who wanted me to think about engineering.
Yeah.
But I
And
just...
computer science.
Yeah, I was not interested in all of that. I just wanted to be a doctor.
Yeah.
And yeah, I became a doctor at age 22. By the time I was 30, I was actually bored. I was bored. I found that I was not getting fulfillment out of the profession. You know, I went into private practice quite early. By the time I was like maybe 8 years into private practice, and I was asking myself, is this it?
Yeah.
You know, there must be more to life.
What is it, the routine of it? Or?
One, it's boring in the sense that half of the patients that you see, they are coming to ask for sick notes when they are actually not sick. The other ones, they want you to be part of defrauding medical aids. And all of those things, you just think, I can't go to school for so many years just to come back and be an accomplice to doing wrong things.
So unethical conduct pervades many parts of our society, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, it is a big problem. I mean, the recent report from Judge Fundile Nyathi on the health market inquiry reveals that there's so much of corruption and fraud within the private healthcare industry. And so as a first-line doctor, you know, as a GP, you are the coalface of that. So I really felt there was more I needed to achieve. You know, I guess when I was, you know, growing up, I just saw myself in a small locality and just being that big doctor in the small locality. But when I became a doctor, and after a few years, I felt, no, man, I need to do something different. But because it's unusual for doctors to branch out into anything else except medicine. The only thing you do, you go back, specialize, and come back and work in the communities. You know, so that is the route I initially thought of. I went to apply to become a specialist in training for dermatology. I didn't want to do calls.
That's my
at night.
cousin, Zamambo Mkiza, is a dermatologist.
Exactly, yeah. So when I went to varsity to ask for, you know, be considered to be a registrar, that is what you are called when you are training, they said there's only 2 posts at any point in time, and 2 of the guys have just started, so you have to wait another 4 years for one of them to pass before we can consider you.
Wow.
So I thought, no, man, I can't wait 4 years. I need to do something. I need to sharpen my brain a little bit. So I then decided to do family medicine, which was a relatively new discipline. Basically, you become a specialist of common conditions across all disciplines, all right? So I did a 3-year master's degree to become a family physician.
So after 6 years, another 3 years?
Yes, I did that. And when I finished it, they called me to come and do dermatology. But by that time, I was fascinated by MBA. What would happen if I can mix an MBA, you know, with my medical degree? And Mteto had just finished his at Vets, so I was talking to him a lot about.
So did you eventually do it?
Well, I wanted one that's focused on healthcare. And there was a program at Stellenbosch University. But when I also tried to get there, it had just been cancelled because they were not getting enough people. They were not getting enough people.
The universe was telling you something, wasn't it?
Yeah, in a way. But then, luckily, Manchester Business School had just started a 1-year program. They call it mini MBA. So I looked at their curriculum and I thought, okay. I took it to the other guys who've done MBA and said, what do you think of this program?
Yeah.
It's a 1-year program.
What, correspondence, or did you go there?
They would come here.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, they would come here to Pretoria in partnership with the Medical Association. There's something called Foundation for Professional Development. So I was in the first group with the current CEO. The reason why I did that, there were 2 reasons. One, I wanted to just move away from the usual stuff of progression of doctor careers, you know, to say
something different.
definitely something different. But also at the time, Nkosazana Zuma, who was the Minister of Health, she was introducing a lot of changes that were destabilizing, the private healthcare sector. And I thought, you know what? There are these people who are working with Nkosazana, who are advising her. Most of them are coming from the legal side, or economics, or actuaries. But there isn't a health person, besides their DG, but generally they interact with people who come from outside of our profession, and these guys are shaping the direction. There's very little voice by the doctors, who are just the people who have to work within that environment. And I thought, maybe, if I acquire the business management skills, I could actually be one of the people who could be a thought leader that advises, that critiques, and comes out with solutions.
So this is perfect for my next question.
Yeah.
What do you think your unique value proposition is?
I'm a solutions-oriented kind of person. So whenever I get into any situation, I'm critical of what is there, with a view to adding value. So I'm about adding value in whatever situation that I'm in. So the skills I acquired helped me. I mean, even in medicine, you find out what is the problem, and then what can I do to make sure that this person is as healthy as possible. But now, in the business world, it's about, making a bigger difference, influencing, how things are going.
So do you
being part of
like influencing policy? Is that something?
I like influencing policy. I definitely do. But not just influencing policy, but I also like to ensure I'm part of running programs that will solve the problems. Because sometimes people are very good.
You're a doer.
I'm a doer.
Okay.
One of the things I actually regret about the discipline of medicine is that you go in there, you're fresh, you've got all the abilities, you can be a lateral thinker, you can think strategically and whatever, but the training itself actually narrows you down.
Because you're a specialist, yeah.
Yeah, and so you can't think laterally, you're not very strategic. So when I switched from medicine into business, I had to then learn, to think strategically, to think laterally, because that's what you need to provide solutions. And so my unique value proposition really is I am a solutions-oriented guy who's passionate about healthcare. I'm not really interested in anything else outside of healthcare. All right? I'm somebody who's very positive.
Well, this is interesting because, unfortunately, when we lost Bongani Mayusi, you disclosed the fact that you suffer from depression. Why did you not want us to get the impression that you're a perfect human being? Why did you want us to have insight into that part of you?
It comes from some realization that, I got around 98, 99, when I had my first serious life event, which really took me down to a point where I had to close my practices. I had financial problems. I had to move in with my sister because I couldn't, really even afford paying the basic rent. But that experience of about 6 months not working, with a failed marriage, failed medical practice, and trying to say, how do I move forward? That actually was the best time to get to know who Fundile is, why is he here on earth, what's my life purpose really, and bad as it was as an experience, but it gave me so much growth to actually understand that I'm not just here to add numbers, I'm here to be part of, making the world a better place. So with the Bongani situation, firstly, he was my senior and mentor from high school. Same when I got to medical school, I looked up to him so much, and he was the kind of guy who was selfless, always there to support us who were coming up. And then he took a year off to do something else, and then he became a classmate from the 4th year until the final year. So I worked so closely. I looked up to this guy. He's the guy who understood, the value of hard work, even if you think you are, mentally gifted, or intellectually gifted, So his loss through depression and suicide took me back to a point where I was so afraid about what the world was going to say, when I had a failed marriage, that I'm a social failure. And so I thought maybe the best thing is to just end my life, So whilst I didn't talk about that then, but when his situation happened, it just took me back 20 years ago. And also understanding that mental illness, there's so much lack of understanding about what it is.
There's a lot of stigma there.
There's a lot of stigma, there's a lot of discrimination about it. So I felt, okay, Bongani is not alone. I've gone through this as well. I could have been written about as well, just like Bongani, as somebody who killed himself. And so I thought, at this point, South Africa needs people who can say depression, suicide, it can happen to any of us. Yes. In fact, those amongst us who are high achievers, who are highly critical of themselves, who set very high bar for themselves, when we don't achieve or we feel we're not achieving what we've set for ourselves, we actually high risk to actually be too hard on ourselves and even kill ourselves. And he was that kind of person. So I saw myself as a social failure. And that's why I wanted to just end it all.
And we need to be more compassionate towards ourselves first.
Exactly.
And then we'll be able
Exactly. So really my main reason for coming out was to put a face to depression.
And to say you've survived that.
To say, actually, it's temporary, no matter how bleak it looks like. Look, 20 years later, I'm in a much better space.
And we're benefiting from what you are doing.
Exactly, because I could have been stuck at the medical surgery, scratching my head there. Right now, if the divorce did not happen and the depression and whatever else, I wouldn't have taken a risk to go and start a big business that is actually going to influence not a small locality, but the country with a vision to grow further, to the continent and the rest of the world.
I suppose the wisdom is about, even in pain, there are lessons.
Definitely.
There are gifts. So it's about focusing more on the gifts that they bring, even if they're painful, so that you're able to overcome.
Exactly. I mean, that's what I think. I also, obviously, at a spiritual level, I believe that, from time to time, things will be allowed to happen to you to bring you back in line with what you're actually supposed to be doing. Because that's the first time I got to know that, because I was stressing, if I leave my medical practice, am I not straying away from the reason why I'm here on earth? But I actually understood that sometimes your purpose and the vision relating to that is, is given to you in increments.
Yeah, it's not a straight line.
It's not a straight line. I'm actually happy that I went through that bad experience, because I think it has given the world a better version of myself.
We're happy, because which is why we follow you. In terms of last year, 2018, what book did you read that made a good impression, and why did it make that impression on you?
There's actually two books. The first one was I've been grappling with issues of spirituality. All right? Now, the first book is a book written by Mr. Crayvachen about Mandela. It's called The Spiritual Mandela. That's the
I haven't come across that.
The Spiritual Mandela. But what touches me about that book is that we know so much about Mandela, but when it comes to his spirituality and faith, he chose to keep it private. And whenever questions were asked around that, he decided, no, this is one space I am not going to share about myself. So that book shares a lot about, basically, it's what we refer to as syncretism. When somebody believes in more than one, religion or spirituality. So the Christian side of him and the Methodist side of things comes out very clearly. But also the traditional African belief system within him also comes out. One part that really stood out for me is the fact that when he was about to be buried, when they were repatriating the body from Johannesburg to Umtata, they sent an elder from the Tembu clan to come in and do what is referred to as the harvesting of the spirit. All right? So an olive branch, fresh olive branch, was used as the transport of his spirit with that elder all the way to Waterkloof, and from Waterkloof to Kunu, and where he was buried. Now, for him, the guy that we all look up to, actually he was still very traditional, and he had no issues with mixing the two. And
it's not in conflict.
It's not.
I mean, that's why I know it, because in our family we do it.
Yes.
So they still Christian families.
But most people do not understand. In fact, even if there is a traditional African belief system, they don't talk about it openly. It's normally discreet.
I think that's part of our downfall, isn't it? Being embarrassed about our culture.
Exactly. So for me, that's one thing that I really picked up, that actually there's nothing wrong with more than one belief system.
You can integrate it.
You must integrate it. Number two, it's a book by Malcolm Gladwell, The Outliers.
I love that man.
What I liked about that book is the fact that it says, if you are successful in whatever field of endeavor that you've chosen, you must take time to think that and understand that it's not only because of your own talent and skills and everything else, your brilliance. Most of the time, there's certain things that happened that changed the course and made you to be where you are. And so through those situations, you got to be where you are. So don't just think that everything is about you. The universe conspired. You met a certain person who, because of meeting that person, it changed how things, the other part is about those 10,000 hours, You
take them seriously, do you?
No, I do. I do, I just believe, I don't believe in success, hard work.
Yeah.
Hard work, practice, hard work.
There are no shortcuts, no?
I don't believe in shortcuts. So those are the two books that really, influenced my thinking from last year.
What is the most courageous decision you've ever taken?
Last year, in this company, this is the 20th year of its existence. There's one area of our business which is in high demand. It's called the Employee Assistance Programs, or the counseling services for troubled employees and their families. It's the most sought out, or sought after service by employers. Now, but the industry itself in South Africa, it's about 30 years old. It's been stagnant. It's not been growing. There hasn't been much innovation. There's a lot of, I'll call it oligopoly. And generally, guys are comfortable. But everything else around them is changing. But the industry is not changing. And so I decided that I'm going to make sure that PHS goes into this industry, disrupt it by leveraging technology. And so we've made huge investments in the last 18 months to develop, I would say, first of a kind in the continent, technology platform that ensures that people can be able to access counseling from, counseling professionals, not only through the phone, but other channels as well, including video counseling. Yes, we developed that technology platform, multi-channel technology platform, which we have called Inua.
Inua. Yeah,
Inua is a Swahili word for to cure, to heal, to uplift, to rejuvenate. We have plans to grow into the continent, and we thought to show that, let's give it a name of the most spoken indigenous language in Africa.
I love Swahili.
Yes.
I don't speak it, but my company is also called Busara Leadership Partners.
Oh.
And Busara means wisdom in Swahili.
That's lovely. So we'll be making a lot of noise We launched it in November last year. We are still rolling it out now with the employers. We'll be going beyond the traditional EAP to the consumers, because there's a lot of people who
So
need
directly to the consumer instead of
direct
just
to consumers.
that's
We'll be
innovative.
launching that
Yeah.
around June, but also to related industries as a value-added service to your insurers. So if somebody has got a funeral policy, when they claim, or well, when their family claim, they must also be able to get bereavement counseling through that and other forms of counseling.
Well done.
Packaged within
Yeah.
that. You've diagnosed with a dreaded disease, you know, you must also be able to get counseling as a value-added service. So we are basically saying the EAP industry, yes, it was for employers,
So you're really
but
disrupting it.
we are definitely disrupting it
Well
through
done.
technology.
I'm very proud of you in there. You've unfortunately been a victim of crime a number of times in your young life. The other one was the credit card fraudster in the UK, 2006. And recently, which got all our hearts stopping for a while, you had a botched carjacking just like 3 weeks ago. How have these violations affected your mental health, do you think?
Obviously, it's not nice to be a victim of crime, any form of crime. But also, we also need to be realistic and understand that in this day and age, there's a lot of people who actually make it their business to steal from others. So for me, I look for a lesson in a situation. The lesson from the credit card fraud is that when you go to a restaurant and you are paying, don't allow the waiter to disappear with your card, because I then understood that they get paid some money for each card that they skim, so that they produce, a clone of your card. That's what happened. Yeah. They cloned my card, and so they
And this was
they
not
bought.
even in South Africa.
It was in the UK. Yeah. In fact, there was another one in Russia as well. So for me, from that experience, it taught me that you need to be vigilant. Even with going to restaurants, which is the normal thing, be vigilant. Yeah. About the most recent one, that was very scary. In fact, I thought that was the last day of my life. Because, I was followed from Sentin, and then, when I stopped at the garage, they pounced on me with guns, 3 guys who pointed guns at me and demanded my valuables. I actually thought they were looking for the car as well. But unfortunately, I think the car I was driving is one of those standout cars, and maybe they were scared that they will not be able to hide. Yeah. They will be easily caught. I don't know. But from that experience, more than being disappointed, because crime, again, is everywhere in South Africa.
And the world.
And the world, yes, and the world. This is my 22nd year in Johannesburg, and I had never experienced serious crime that threatened my life like that. So it was my introduction to Johannesburg. So I had to look on the positive side.
Yeah.
The fact that, yes, I lost some possessions, but my life was spared. So for me, I'm grateful for my life.
That was, reading it was just, we were all like shaking a bit.
Yes, no. Look, it's scary, very scary situation, but it's life. Yeah. Life goes on.
What one behavior do you think that you've observed from leaders that you think ruins them, that you think they should guard against, especially aspirant leaders? They shouldn't really fall foul to that. What is that behavior?
I would say hubris. I find that sometimes some leaders, their position and the influence they have over others and to society goes to their heads. They become so consumed with who they are and their position, and it gets to a point where the way they interact with others, it's looking down upon people. They don't listen, to other people's views. They know it all, and they've got extreme arrogance, which actually turns off a lot of stakeholders. If you are in that position of leadership, you should be the kind of person who makes it easy for people to come to you or to share ideas with you and all of that. So there's many examples, I mean, in our own space, in the healthcare space, the AIDS debate, HIV and AIDS debate, and the position that was taken by our president then, you know, Thabo, I saw serious hubris. That made him not to take time to think and understand that actually I'm not an expert in this space. There are many people who know a lot about this space. Let me work with others rather than think that I'll apply the principles of economics in a field of absolutes. You know, I mean, medicine, it's about research and all of that. So that's just one example. But with what has been happening in our SOEs, I see a lot of leaders, whether we're talking the SARS situation, whether we're talking PRASA, whether we're talking Transnet. So people, the arrogance and inability to actually take time to listen.
So listening is the key thing. Listen to other human beings.
Yes.
What are the last words of wisdom you want to share with us? I really have enjoyed this. I wish it could be longer.
I think my words of wisdom, my parting words is, in life, we all have something unique that we are bringing to the world. Let's try and discover that as early as possible so that we can make as much positive impact to humanity as possible.
For as long as we can.
For as long as we can, yes.
Have you enjoyed that?
Yes. It ended quickly.
I hope you enjoyed it. I really did. I didn't know what to expect, but transferring from the virtual world to the real world, I'm happy.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for joining us again for Wisdom Personified Conversations with Dudu Msomi. Until next time.